are live, and we have got a lot to talk about. We are going to talk about Israel's progression to the south. We are going to talk about the commencement of a war that is absolutely outrageous, not because Israel is fighting it, but because Hamas initiated it. We're going to talk about that. We are going to answer lots of questions about things that are happening in the tunnels right now. We are going to get a general update of what is going on in Israel, and I am looking forward to the conversation. I think it's going to be very useful. Obviously, David always brings a lot to the table. Before we talk about any of that, I do want to take a quick moment to thank you guys for the support that you are giving us when you are doing your super chats and your super stickers. You guys are really, really awesome. Because of time, if we can get around to it, we'll actually read them to you. But in the meantime, what I will do is just acknowledge you guys and thank you for your contributions. You guys are really awesome, and I want to thank you for it and just tell you how much we appreciate it and are absolutely grateful. Mariana, thank you so much, and obviously praying for you. I know that you're fighting the good fight, and we thank you for that. Just keep on keeping on, Brad. Thank you so much. And you're right about going about our Father's business, right? We know that Christ could come at any moment. And Pam Queck, thank you. You're incredibly generous. You guys are really awesome. Just the giving that you do, especially in a world where we're being demonetized. And let me see. I think we got another one here. Let me refresh the screen and get this all squared away. Let me see. Here we go. I think we got one more. I saw Hunter, but it's not showing up on my other thing. Hunter King, thank you so much. You are awesome, and the support you guys show continues to just be a total blessing. David, what's the latest and the greatest, bro? I know that there's a lot that's happening right now. Things are getting crazy. First of all, let's start with how you're doing. How are things going?
Well, I'm fine, and I saw somebody said hi, David, so I'm saying hi back. Okay, if
There's a lot of people saying hi, David, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah, a lot of people saying hi, David.
I am doing fine. It's been a very hectic period. I've been running around and speaking in different churches, and it looks like it's going to settle down now until Christmas. So I'm going to kind of instigate or kind of zoom into content and videos for a while. That's that. And Christmas, by the way, you guys go a little bit wacko between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I can't really get my mind around that one.
Listen, for me as a pastor, the busyness is insane. This is a time that is absolutely out of control in terms of the schedule. There is no such thing as slow down or stop during this time, which if that's what you're talking about, that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And let me tell you, it's a crazy season.
Well, an interesting contrast, and me and Chris have been talking about it lately, is that holidays play a much bigger role here than they do in Israel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think people celebrate Hanukkah even more here than they do in Israel.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out why, and my gut instinct tells me that when you need something to fill up your environment, your life, your importance, what's important to you, and you don't have things that are really important outside you, you will recreate an importance inside. It's like we don't do the sport thing like you do.
Right.
Because, I mean, college football is, I mean, I'm watching this happening here, and, and sports are really, but we all go into the Army. So that is our young men kind of, okay, where are you? What are you doing? What unit? What's this? We come back on the Saturdays, and the guys sit down, and the girlfriends complain that you're only talking about tanks and guns and, and everything. But that's a part of our national culture. Without that, football's a good replacement.
Israelis spend a whole lot more time in the arena than they do on the benches. And I think that's the big thing. Americans used to spend more time in the arena. They don't. So we spend a whole lot more time spectating than we do actually participating and being in the arena and actually fighting the good fight. And I think that that's something that continues to be a major issue for us, and it contributes to some of the things that we're seeing today. Now, with respect to the holidays, if you were to ask me personally, I could tell you that it's a nostalgia thing, right? There's a lot of very good memories that come to this time, and there's a big emphasis that's spent on, what's tied to it. And I think that especially in times where things are more difficult, in harder times, people love this time of the year, because this time of the year kind of relieves a little bit of the pressure that's oftentimes associated with the craziness of the world.
So I built my first Christmas tree this week, and I hope my mom's okay over there. But I'm getting through that. But what I'm again, my point of view is a little bit different. I guess maybe America is blessed that you get to sit on the bleachers.
In a way, yes.
And I think as an Israeli, seeing what's going on there and watching what's going on here, America is blessed with the relative peace. America is blessed with two massive oceans on your borders. America is blessed with one of the strongest economies and definitely the strongest military in the world. So you get to sit on the bleachers and watch the game without being a part, without having to go play by play, without getting bruised, and without dealing with what it's like to be on the line of scrimmage.
The only problem,
I think that's wonderful. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, Americans, count your blessings.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the only problem that comes with that, and I think it's fair for me to bring that up, is the fact that we have, as Americans, we have, for lack of a better term, we have lazied ourselves into not appreciating or caring for our nation. The one thing that I love about Israel, and that I love about a lot of Middle Eastern countries, is that when you're born, there's already an expectation that when you're of age, you're going to serve your country. Yeah. You're going to do it, whether it be in the IDF or something like that. I think that we should make a requirement in America, in the United States of America, to at least spend 1 to 3 years in service. It doesn't even have to be military service. It can be, doing something community oriented, something like that. But we should make a requirement that people put their lives on hold right at, 17, 18 years old, and until they're 21, live a life of service in some way or another. It would completely change the face of our economy and our world as we know it today if Americans did that, but we don't.
It would change your society from a society of I'm sorry, I mean, spoiled brats.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, somebody used the wrong pronoun. What am I going to do? It'll make people appreciate the United States of America more. And here's the thing. I don't understand how you can... Well, again, we're all dealing. I don't know. I had teenagers. They're already adults now. And, one of the problems that we all complain about is one of the signs of immaturity is when they complain about things that they get for free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, why isn't my car bigger, better? Why isn't my phone newer? And you try to say, well, you're getting this for free. What are you complaining about?
Oh, yeah.
And I think we live, in a teenager style society. Yep. Americans complain for the things that they get for free and they don't even appreciate.
We live in a world right now where there's a lot of people who are inheriting things, and in their inheritance, they choose to lead like people who inherited things. They don't know the value of what they had. They don't know what it means to stop and pick up from the ground up. I talk about this oftentimes. We have lots of business owners that go to our church, and they know that I deeply understand the idea of what it means to start from the beginning and build something from nothing, right? And when you do that, it makes a completely different, it brings to you a different perspective. Nowadays, we've got second, third, fourth generations of these families that have done a lot of building coming in and basically taking over something that somebody spent so many years building. I'll tell you something very valuable that I had when I was a kid, and we'll all go somewhere with this. when I was a young kid and I had just started in ministry, now mind you, the one who had the greatest influence on my discipling and being raised up in the Lord and even in ministry was my mother and my father. Like, make no mistake about it, they're the greatest contributors to it. But I remember the very first day I am officially on staff at Calvary Chapel Downey, and Pastor Jeff makes everybody mad at me by basically saying, I think it was like that whole summer, he's like, come on, let's go to lunch. Every single time me and him went to lunch together. And that was just, we had always been really close, still are. And he tells me, he says, James, jump in the car. So we get in his Jeep. And at the time, Jeff was not nearly as technologically savvy as he is today. He's a lot more savvy today than he was back then.
I'm the son-in-law. Believe me,
so
I still need to deal with some of the technology.
Listen, it's bad. But back then, he was so bad with it that you had to take his ATM card and his debit card and put it in the ATM for him and get the money he asked you to get out because he didn't know how to do it. That's just the way he was, right? So he gets me in his car and he says, let's go for a drive. So we go and first of all, we get lunch, and he only had two places in Downey that he loved going to, a Japanese place and a Mexican place. And we went there and we got lunch. And then he says, okay, we're going to go for a drive. And what he does is he takes me to a park in Downey, park by the name of Furman Park. And he parks right in front of the park, and he says, do you know what you're looking at here? I go, bro, I was raised in Downey. Of course I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Furman Park. And he says, no, you're not. You're looking at the very first place Calvary Chapel Downey ever met. And he goes on to tell me that this is where him, his wife, and his two daughters, at the time it was just two daughters, gathered together and had the very first service, the very first meeting, and it was just him and his family. And then he told me what was going through his mind at the time, like what he felt like the Lord had put upon his heart, what had happened, the things that are going on. And he spends, 5 minutes to 10 minutes there. Then he takes me to another spot. He says, do you know where this is? I go, man, it's a beat up old little, computer repair business. He goes, no, this is a 100 square foot building that we met in. This was our first building that we met in. And then he walks me through. This is what I was thinking. And he takes me from place to place to place to place to place to place. Gives me a whole tour of Downey and all the places he went to. And he said, and at every place he told me what he was thinking, what was going on, what was happening in his mind, what his thoughts were at the time. And although I never completely understood it back then, I know for a fact now that he knew that one day I would either start a work or take a work over, and he wanted me to understand the mindset of what he had went through. And I will tell you, when I left Calvary Downey to go start Calvary Chapel Signal Hill from the ground up, many of the same things that he talked about struggling with and going through and dealing with were things that I was facing. Yep. And it was valuable. There was a lot. My very first couple of years of starting the church, there were lots of calls that came into Jeff where I just said, you were right about that. 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 And it's just funny how that works. But so many kids now are not getting that. So many kids are like, give me the keys, I'll take it over. And then they're driving things into the ground. And that's part of the problem that we see here in the United States of America. It's part of the problem that we're seeing in a lot of places. The enemy's taking advantage of that, and he's ruining a lot of societies doing that.
Well, I'm kind of, again, this is me moving into this culture, and I'm trying to kind of figure out differences. And again, I'm how do you say, comparing to Israel and comparing to other places. But people live their whole life off a screen and out of a window.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
it's sad.
You don't need to prepare food. You go to a restaurant, but you don't even need to go into the restaurant and see the people preparing the food. You drive up to a window and you get it prepared.
Forget that. You have it delivered to you now.
Okay, you don't need to go shopping. You go on the screen and it comes to you in a box. You don't need to see. I mean, you don't need to make people. I'm thinking about teenagers reach 20 years old. They've never made anything in their life. They've never composed something. They never put something together. They've never gone to a sequence of events that leads to a product or something. They don't go through the whole sequence.
Right, that's right.
And with that, then your whole worldview becomes a screen.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's a screen, then again, and this is something I've been teaching lately, When you try to decide what's important, what's not, when you try to decide what's real, what's not, when you try to decide what's factual and what's not, when you're buying it through a screen, the amount of likes and followers are a truth factor and not the actual evidence and truth.
Yep.
And that's what we've become.
And that is why we're here. That's the problem. That's the very reason why we're sitting here having this talk, trying to develop meaningful conversations about the things that are going on around us, because we're living in that world, and the reality of it is we have to combat it because of how dark things are becoming. And it's at the point right now where it's getting darker and darker and darker and darker, and a lot of people are just seeing it kind of float by without recognizing what's slipping in between our fingers, like what we're losing. And we're losing a lot, and it's at the expense of, wanting to be comfortable. It's at the expense of, filling your materialistic pockets. And that's why Israel is in big trouble.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm kind of noticing a lot of is the echo chamber. Okay. Because the algorithms that we keep on talking about know how to figure out what you want. I mean, if you talk about, model cars in your kitchen, then you're going to start getting advertisements for car models. That works. And you start hearing what you talk about and talking about what you hear and hearing what you talk about. And your worldview gets zoomed in to this tiny little group of people and tiny little things. So what I'm trying to say is step out of the echo chamber. Help your children and your grandchildren to step out of the echo chamber. It'll only make their life better.
It's true. And it's a very good conversation to be having. So that brings us to where we're at. Mm-hmm. Give us an update, bro, on what's happening in Israel. I will tell you this, and I'm pretty disgusted by it. I just showed it to you. I recently did an incredible interview with actually a couple of great guys. It has been the response. Look, for the most part, everybody has enjoyed the conversations that I've had with some of these guys, right? David TaL he's just an amazing guy. And then the conversation that I had with Netanyahu, which that conversation was remarkable, right? We posted that conversation online, and it was astounding when we went through the comments on Rumble to see the level of anti-Semitic comments that are being thrown out from people who clearly do not have an understanding of what's going on in the region or in the world. And right now it's getting way worse because this so-called ceasefire has now been, as people are calling it in their propagandist ways, violated by Israel because Israel is firing now and they're heading to the south. Can we talk about all of this?
Yes, let's do it. But I want to touch one more thing before we go too far, because this is something I need our people to understand also. A lot of normal people, I will not publicly give an opinion about something that I don't really know or don't really understand. So if somebody comes to me and says, okay, I don't know, how to make English muffins. I have no idea how to make English muffins. I don't know what goes into it. I don't know what happens. Okay, so somebody says, what's your opinion about this kind of English muffin or that kind of English muffin? I'm going to say, listen, I have no idea. I will not have an opinion. It will not go on. But the other side
I know where you're
has
going
no problem opinionating something that they have no knowledge about.
Yeah.
And they believe that because they are English, then they have an opinion about English muffin. Or, for instance, because they're Muslims, or their father was Muslim, or their grandfather was Muslim, that means they can have an opinion. They have no idea what's going on, but they believe that they are allowed to opinionate their opinion without any knowledge. So on one side, you have people who will not opinionate without knowledge, and that's why you don't hear them. And the other people have an opinion about everything but no knowledge. And in a world where the amount of likes or the amount of virtual noise that you make gives you the platform, the other side is winning because they have more opinionated people, even though their opinions are wrong.
Yeah. And being fed by lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. Friday, I'm releasing a video that I think will be shocking to some people. This is a video of Charlie Kirk having a confrontation with some students at the University of Connecticut. Now, this conversation was related to Gaza and what's going on with Hamas. And there was a lot of discussion of the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas and a lot of very interesting subjects. But it took place over 2 years ago when the rockets were being fired from Gaza the last time.
And the Hamas was not in it.
Right, yeah. It was...
we learned that was a trick.
Yeah. So we saw all of this happening, right? And actually, believe it or not, I don't even think it was 2 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago when Hamas was firing all of those rockets, the ones that were coming from northern Gaza. If you remember, there was probably at that time like 8,000 of them that were fired. But the difference there is that one only lasted about 2 weeks, and then it was over with. It was during that time, and it would blow your mind when you saw some of the things that these students were saying. And what I did, and hopefully everybody will really get a lot out of this video, I read through Genesis chapter 3 when Satan tempted Eve and Adam,
Tricked her,
and they tricked them and they fell. And you can see the patterns in the speech of these students with respect to the situation with Hamas and what happened in Genesis 3. And I spent an hour talking about it. And we're going to release it on Friday. And I think it's going to be very useful to a lot of people because they're going to see the parallels here. And it's just unbelievable.
So again, this is part of the war that's being fought. And it's important for people to understand that this is a war for much more than just what's going on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
But let's talk about what's going on the ground. And let me be Israeli here for a minute. 60 days. And the hostages are still in there. It's horrific. 110 hostages were released, but it's like the other hostages don't count. It's like the other hostages are not there. 60 days ago, somebody came into a kibbutz and grabbed people and pulled them by their hair across the border. And they've been in these, and the stories that we're getting from the hostages that have been released are horrific. And the world is quiet. 60 days since the most terrible gang abuse that you could think of. Okay, and the UN Human Rights Committee has not condemned it. 60 days since, children were pulled out of their beds, and the world has not said anything massive about it. And when people are pushed to the corner, I mean, you see these Piers Morgan saying, "Do you think Hamas is a terrorist organization?" when they can't say it. And these people are not canceled for not saying how terrible this is. Not only not canceled, 60 days where we're watching the world not regard what happened in October as the most terrible human rights abuse that has happened in the modern period. And nobody is saying it. It's been 60 days. And please don't forget this. They're still in that hole in the ground, wondering what's going to happen, hearing what's going on. And that brings us to a lot of things that are coming on. They need your prayer. The families are going crazy, by the way. Families met with Netanyahu and were very, very adamant and very, very upset. And I can stand on both sides of this divide. I mean, on one hand, we have to finish off Hamas. But on the other hand, think about somebody whose son is still in the hole in the ground in Gaza. And what is he saying? What I want is my son back more than anything. I don't care about anything else. And you've got this tension between the two of them, which is kind of permeating all of Israel. I mean, we're gonna need a psychologist at the end of this.
Oh, are you kidding me? They're going to need a team of them. I mean, I can't even imagine what these 3-year-olds that were, locked away, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. I can't even imagine. To a degree, the babe's absolutely terrible.
And what I need you to do is pray for the leaders who have to make this decision. Okay, what's more important? What do we do now? What do we play? Because the enemy is playing with. I went into a couple of bad days when they started releasing the hostages because I saw everybody was really, really happy about the hostages and they were coming out, and I'm seeing the world play and negotiate with the lives of 4-year-old children.
Yep.
just like
it's no big deal.
No, just like slaves on the auction block, back in the days of slavery, where it wasn't a person, it was a political asset that you can play with. I mean, a 4-year-old child is not a political asset. It's not something to play with. It's a child, and the world was accepting the okay, maybe 2 for 1, 3 for 1. BBC said, oh,
well, do you know how bad it got?
Did
you see that interview on the BBC
with that lady who said that 3 for 1, it's not fair?
What a pig she is.
No, okay, and here's the thing. Did I ever tell you I worked for a newspaper in Israel for a couple of years?
I know that you did. I know that you did. You were doing graphics.
I was doing graphic, and I'm sitting on the desk of the newspaper, and one of the realizations that I came out, and I'm sorry to say this, but the media conveys what they think the people want to hear.
Yep.
So when the media conveys that kind of opinion, or she has that kind of opinion, that's because in the back of her mind, she says there's a lot of people in England who watch this show who believe that way. And I'm just conveying that. That's what the media will say all the time. Ugh. And I think that's the problem. And we need, again, to convey, and I'm keeping on saying this as many places, wherever I can, we need to convey a counterbalance to that dynamic. And I think that's our role.
It's a big deal. So, okay. So tell us what's going on right now. We know that the IDF is moving south. There's a lot of people saying, what in the world are they doing? They should have just stayed up in the north because of their Hamas's headquarters to the north. And there's a lot of nonsense being spoken of. And I actually want to debunk some of this stuff.
Okay.
Why do they have to go to the south?
Do you have a map of the Gaza Strip? Can we find
it? I can find it and bring
Let's
it up.
find a map of the Gaza Strip. And let's talk about some of the names. Okay, the Gaza Strip. The northern part of the Gaza Strip has a series of refugee camps, towns, and the main city is Gaza City in the middle. And more or less on the edge of the city in Gaza, in the main city in Gaza Strip, was the hospital that everybody's talking about. And that housed the headquarters of the Hamas while this whole war was going on. The hospital actually had underground bunkers and command rooms. We know that some of the hostages were literally brought into those underground bunkers immediately after the attack. But Israel has moved into the northern part of Gaza and has taken or completely conquered Gaza City. That is the main source. We've gone down into the tunnels underneath. And we're dealing with the 2 refugee camps that are left in the north that have to be kind of dealt with. So the northern part of Gaza is more or less under Israeli control. The Jabalia refugee camp will be conquered sometime soon. But we know that as Israel moved into Gaza City, the leadership and the main military assets of Hamas, because what did Israel? Israel told everybody to move into the south. And a lot of the people that moved into the south were the Hamas fighters and the Hamas leadership. And they set up in their secondary headquarters, which is underneath the refugee camp at Khan Yunis. And that is on the other side of the divide that Israel told everybody to move to. But I think, hopefully, I mean, I'm not inside that deep, but I think Israel kind of did that on purpose in order to put them at a place where we know where they are. And as of this morning, Israel has completely surrounded the refugee camp in Khan Yunis and is actually being prepared to go into and find the last of the main headquarters of the main bunkers. We think that Mohammed Daf and Yahya Silwan is inside one of those bunkers in Khan Yunis, and that
undoubtedly
might be,
he is. Undoubtedly.
Well, I kind of doubt a lot of things that have been happening lately. So we're actually heading into where you go, Khan Yunis. See the Khan Yunis on the left?
Yeah. Yep. I know. I'm just looking to make it a full screen and bring it out to everybody here. Give me just a second here. That way we can get this out. Okay. Let me switch this over so that you guys can see this, and then what I'll do is get us off in the corner here and flip out our camera angle. Okay.
There we go. Are we up?
We're up.
So use your mouse. Go up to Gaza. You see the Gaza area?
Yep.
Okay. And just to the south of Gaza, you see the darker areas are what is built, and you can see right there where your mouse is, just to the south of that, there's a little gap right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the gap that Israel moved everybody down. Okay, so it said everybody moved down. That is the Gaza River. Everybody moved down, and Israel is more or less taking control of the whole area to the right side of that, to the northeast of that. Okay, but we know that together with 1.5 million people from Gaza that moved down to the south, okay, a lot of them were the Hamas fighters, the Hamas leadership, and a lot of their kind of assets. You're going to have to zoom in a little bit more on this one. Can we do that?
Yep, very easy.
Okay, and let's go down to the south, and you will see the city of Khan Yunis. Right down to the south. Go down that road, down that road.
Oh, there it is. Go. Okay.
Okay. So while all of this is happening, Israel has gone into the Gaza Strip in the south, and Khan Yunis is now completely surrounded. Not everything has been conquered around it, but they've created a surrounding area. Where your mouse is the Kisufim Road. You see where it says Kisufim on the right? Okay, that's one of the main entrances. Israel actually has moved through that down to the Khan Yunis area, and as of now, they're talking about Khan Yunis being surrounded. And here's the thing. It might be that if we surround Khan Yunis and go into the bunkers that are underneath, and everybody think that Yahya Sinwar is in the bunker underneath Khan Yunis, if we can take that out, then maybe the Hamas will surrender and this will be over. And that's what Israel is trying to do right now. But the vast majority of the Palestinians are in the area around Khan Yunis right now, mostly to the Rafah. We see where it says Rafah. That's the border crossing over to Egypt right now. And there are many hundreds of thousands of people in that area actually as we speak.
And by the way, this area of Rafah is definitely going to be a problem for Israel. I think.
Has been a problem.
Yeah.
I've been there. You see the line, that straight line that goes from the beach to Rafah?
Oh, yeah.
This is what we call the Philadelphia Road. I mean, I've patrolled that. No, the line between the border between Egypt and the Gaza Strip.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That line, okay? When that was in Israeli control, there were a couple of massive terrorist attacks that took place. One of them was a very serious that took out something like 13 Israeli soldiers. So we take that very seriously. And underneath that border are hundreds of tunnels that go from Gaza into Egypt. Now, let me remind everybody that the Rafah crossing is in Egyptian control. Let me remind everybody that Egypt is a Muslim country. Let me remind everybody that half of the population in the Gaza Strip are Egyptians. Let me remind everybody, when you say that Israel has blockaded the Gaza Strip, Israel cannot tell Egypt what to do and what not to do. And let me remind everybody that even when Egypt closed it off, they allowed the tunnels to come through, and there were tunnels that were big enough to bring herds of sheep through. So what I'm trying to say is the whole lie about the blockade is kind of crazy. But what I'm trying to say is right now, everything is kind of centered on Khan Yunis. And we're going to see what's going to happen, how long it's going to take Israel to come inside and take out the headquarters. And if we can find Sinwar and Def, then there's a very good chance this thing would be over. Go back to the Gaza Strip, though.
Okay. You want me to zoom back out?
A little bit.
Okay.
And go back to the northern part.
Okay.
And
zoom in.
Zoom in to the northern part of Gaza. There's something like 500 kilometers of tunnels underneath all of this.
Oh, easily.
And where you see the northern part of Gaza, I don't know, it says not the Al-shifa refugee camp up there on the top.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. According to foreign press, and I don't know if Israel has actually kind of stated it officially, somewhere along that piece of coast are 5 massive water pumps. And I'm talking about massive water pumps. And Israel is thinking, contemplating, kind of holding back of actually pumping millions of gallons of water into the Gaza tunnel system. Okay? Do you understand that if the tunnels go that deep, they have to be underneath sea level? Which means if you can pump water into them, it will kind of flood them. And the idea is to flood the whole tunnel system, make them unusable, interrupt and kind of, how do you say, kind of ruin them and all the electricity and all the sensors and everything. And that the Hamas fighters will have to come out of the tunnels. The plan is in place. The equipment's in place. Israel hasn't pressed the button on that yet. And this is something that we're going to look forward or kind of see what might happen on the ground. The Americans are talking about it. The Israelis are talking about it. Foreign press is talking about it. There are two main issues that might come as a result of this. One is the hostages. And we know that the hostages were underneath the bombardments.
Undoubtedly.
By the way, we find out, I mean, we believe that one of the reasons that the Hamas broke the ceasefire, because it wanted more days of ceasefire, but Israel made it very clear that we want the women out first, women and children out first. And there was a group of women that should have been in the next, batch of hostages. And according to everything that we know, they've been terribly abused. And because of that, Hamas decided not to release them because that would become public knowledge. And that's what broke up the ceasefire or the pause that we're talking about.
Israel didn't break it up. I can tell you that now.
Well, totally, because we would have gotten as many as we caught now. But I think Hamas has realized that we're going all the way with this one. Another thing very interesting is people don't realize, but Israel has allowed as much humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip as they want.
Look, I continue to struggle with the characterization of the rest of the international community. They're liars that continue to want us to stipulate to the idea that Israel has been inhumane in how it deals with people. Israel is the only military on the face of the earth that tells its enemy what it's planning on doing for the sake of saving civilian lives. They send text messages. I have a video that the Consul General of Israel gave me the first time this was happening 3 years ago, where there is a conversation that is going on with a member of the Israeli Air Force and a public liaison, by the way, and a leader near Gaza or in Gaza, near one of the buildings that they were getting ready to bomb.
Yeah.
And he's telling the person,
get out.
Get out. This is happening, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, okay. And in the video, he not only is refusing to tell anybody in the building that they're there, but when he begins to see the planes coming to destroy the building, he and all of his people start yelling, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Why? Because they knew immediately in that moment that their people were dying, and it was another opportunity for them to kick and scream in the international community about how evil Israel is.
So here's what's going to happen with the tunnels and with the water, okay? Israel's going to be blamed for what? Okay, fine. Let's think now.
I can tell you what they're going to be blamed for. They're going to be blamed for, number one, inhumane treatment, number one. Number two, they're going to be blamed for creating more terrorists, like a lot of these uneducated, foolish people have been saying. The third thing that's going to happen, and this is the thing that really bothers me, is at some point, the infrastructures that sit on top of those tunnels are going to collapse because of the water, and Israel's going to be blamed for the collapsing of those infrastructures. And by the way, I want everybody to know this because this is not commonly known. It's not well known by a lot of people. But when Hamas makes these tunnels, they are over-engineered. They are so well engineered that virtually nothing can collapse those tunnels. But there are areas of those tunnels where it looks like, what the heck happened? Yeah. What did they do? They didn't even do anything here to engineer it. They don't have all the support systems. None of the life systems are in there. Why? And when you see those areas, there are escape routes around those areas so that they can go away. Why? Because the areas that are directly over those tunnels that are not well enforced, schools, hospitals, places that we know will maximize civilian casualties so that the Jews will be blamed for the death of these innocent civilians.
Okay, so what are we going to be blamed for when we fled the tunnels?
I believe that one of the things that Israel is going to be blamed for doing is, besides all the typical things that we know we're going to hear, inhumane treatment and war crimes and all the other stuff, I believe that Israel is going to be faulted for the collapse of every single one of those buildings that end up creating civilian casualties.
You're going to see something else. And something I found out a little while is the ruining of the aquifer, the underground water systems.
You know what? That actually makes sense. I believe that too. I believe that too. And if you guys know anything about that underground water system, it is in many ways very sophisticated and was designed to be a very useful and beneficial tool, which, by the way, a lot of people don't know this, was not the ingenuity of any Arab that's in that area. That was a contribution that was made by Israelis post 1967 in an attempt to be able to bring support to the Arab population.
Totally. Now, here's a question. If that does
That's right. I didn't even think about that. I did not even think about that.
Does happen, should Israel supply water?
No.
Okay, so here's a moral question. If that does happen and we're flooding them and they cannot drill or they cannot pull water out of the wells that are in there, okay, because the water will become salty, okay, does Israel have a moral obligation to supply water to the people in Gaza?
Okay, let me be very careful how I say this, okay? Yes, but it has to accompany a caveat.
Exactly. Okay.
So the idea here is we'll give you water so long as you meet these terms. And I think that yes, I think Israel's prepared to do this, but I think one of the ways that they should be doing this is you are not allowed to get mass amounts of water for any group or people. You're either coming here for your family or you're not. Because I don't want masses of people getting supplies to give Hamas more so that it can destroy its enemies. That's number one. Number two, if you want the benefits that are coming to you from Israel, you need to be an Israeli. You need to be an Israeli citizen. Act like it. What you need to do, I'm not asking you to declare yourself to be Jewish. I'm asking you to simply be an Israeli citizen. Be a productive part of the country that continues to feed you, help you, care for you, preserve your culture, all of those things.
Well, okay, if you want to go that way, look at the Arab Israelis. The Israelis that are Muslims that live inside Israel, their culture, their language. Do you know that every sign in Israel has Arabic on it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, their culture, their language, their sites, everything is a piece. But again, it's not about that. And one of the things that people need to understand, and I think what's happening now, when we're realizing what's happening, is it's not about a two-state solution. It's not about a compromise. It's not about reaching a solution. It's about existence. And one of the things that Israelis have realized now more than anything, we thought our existence was not in question anymore. We thought the existence of the state of Israel didn't have a question mark kind of put on top of it. And I think the world has accepted, most of the world has accepted the existence of the state of Israel. The only problem is this: the Arab world has not.
Yep.
And I think one of the things people need to realize is that the war that we're seeing, the war that's being fought in Gaza, is a war with people who do not want to find a better life for themselves. I mean, they're suffering because they have gone down this path of, we need to destroy Israel. Everything else, including the life of our children, justifies destruction of the state of Israel. Everything else, including not supplying water for our population, everything else, including not creating a viable future, is justified by our resistance. And this is what they call it, our resistance to the occupation. And when they say occupation, they're not talking about occupation of part of Israel, or not talking about occupation about Gaza. Okay, every stone that has a Star of David on it in the Middle East is occupation, according to them.
Can I ask you this question? Because I know it's going to feel like it's off topic, but it isn't, because it relates to a bigger issue that's tied into the discussion that we're having. And that is the thing that we're hearing a lot of now. I mean, we're hearing it everywhere. It's becoming the new thing, is that Bibi is colluding now with Hamas because Israel created Hamas.
Okay,
Me and you know this is a complicated issue.
No, it's very simple. And again, I'm going to be Israeli on you here.
Okay, well, it's simple with respect to the factual analysis that's involved, but it has become very complicated, like Afghanistan has been, and many others, in the eyes and the mind of the media. How about we approach it from that perspective?
Let's address what really happened. Okay, let's put it together. Okay, 1948, Israel becomes a state. Gaza and West Bank are in Jordanian and Egyptian hands. Not even our issue. By the way, the Jordanians and the Egyptians could have created a Palestinian state on all of Gaza, including Eastern Jerusalem, the minute that happened. They didn't. Nobody wants a Palestinian state. The problem is not a Palestinian state. The problem is the existence of the Jewish state. But that is done. When Israel becomes part of the West Bank, when Israel actually takes the West Bank, by the way, from the Jordanians in 1967, a pro-Palestinian organization is created called the PLO that believes that the only way to free the West Bank from the Israeli hands is by struggle. The PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, put together and run by, invented, by the way, by the KGB, put together and run by Yasser Arafat.
Who's Egyptian, by the way.
Was fighting Israel in the West Bank.
And likely gay, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He was likely homosexual.
And also a billionaire.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly a billionaire.
I mean, it's very good to be a Palestinian revolutionary. But anyway, Israel, in its fight for the PLO, decided to back one of the main, arguments or enemies of the PLO. Now, you have to understand, Arabs and Muslims are very, very conservative, very, very religious, okay? So the PLO, by the way, is religious, but less religious than a very fundamentalist Islamic organization who actually came to offset the corruption in the PLO. And the Israeli government thought that the Hamas, which in the beginning kind of expressed itself as a Muslim religious organization, which was out to help and create schools and offset the corruption inside the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Hamas would be something that we could kind of use, both to divide and second, to create a better environment for the Palestinian people, thinking that if the Palestinian people were living better, they would be less attuned to destroying the state of Israel.
That's right.
Okay, I like to illustrate things and see if I could think about a Mexican drug cartel that takes over a part of Mexico just to the side of Israel. It becomes very anti-America and people are dying. And a fundamentalist Christian organization comes and says, okay, we will take over this drug-influenced gang-induced area, and we will turn it into a Christian kind of construct. And the United States of government would support something like that.
Yep.
But then you find out that they're fundamentalist, right-wing, crazy people.
Yep.
So you brought them in because you wanted them to offset a problem, but they become worse than the problem before. Just like what happened in Iraq.
Yep.
Iraq brought, the United States came in, took over Iraq, handed over Iraq to a government, and that turned into ISIS.
Yep.
I mean, basically, so what? Did America create ISIS? Did America want ISIS? And here's another thing that I kind of hear inside. When people want to talk about the politics of the issue and kind of put a political slant on it, they say Netanyahu did it. Okay, when people want to talk, or the way I think about it, okay, when you ask me what's happening, I would say Israel did this, Israel did this.
Yeah.
The enemy, the other side says Netanyahu did this, Netanyahu did that. Now, you live in a democracy. I mean, your president, with all of its problems, is a representative of who you are.
Yeah, republic, but it's the same.
The republic.
That's right.
So you don't say Trump did this or Biden did this. You say the United States, when you talk about the policies of the United States did this and did this. Now, the head of the administration is President Trump or President Biden or whoever it is.
Right.
But when you bring it down to a decision-making by one person, you've taken the rule of the people out of it and turned it into a personal vendetta of somebody.
Right.
And that, I think, is a problem. I don't agree with all the policies that President Biden is doing, but I do realize that he is the head of an administration that represents the United States of America.
Unfortunately. I mean,
you get the idea. Yeah. So when America takes out, or when an American battleship takes out a Houthi rocket in the Red Sea, it's not Biden did it. It's the United States of America
did it. That's right.
And again, listen closely when they start talking about Netanyahu. I don't agree with everything that Netanyahu does, but let's put it this. They say Netanyahu declared war on Gaza. No, the Israeli people declared war on Hamas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Netanyahu declared. The state of Israel and everything that we represent declared war on Hamas.
Yeah, listen, I could not agree with you more. And I think that this continues to be a growing problem. By the way, the complexities of the statement that Israel created Hamas is so, look, I think it's irresponsible because you cannot have a conversation about Hamas and the creation of Hamas without having a discussion of the Islamic Brotherhood and how that relates to Egypt and what's been going on with Egypt even prior to 67, right?
Totally.
And you can't have a conversation about any of this until you fully understand the dynamics involved geopolitically with the creation of such an organization. You have to go further back to that. And I think that what you said is immensely helpful for people to be able to understand the issue, right? It's like you might have two enemies, but if one enemy is a bigger enemy and you can use the smaller of the two enemies to help eliminate the bigger enemy, then you're going to use the smaller of the two enemies to eliminate the bigger enemy. Hands down. Hands down.
Was it a mistake? Probably yes.
Maybe. Look, the problem with saying that was a mistake, and I'm going to just tell you why I think it's a problem. The problem with saying that was a mistake forces you to have to make the statement that a lot of people are making right now in error. Okay, Biden is making this statement right now in error. He's hugely erring in this statement. Monkey and I are going to talk about this tomorrow. We already filmed the show for it. But Biden is quick to condemn Hamas and is saying we don't support them. Let's eliminate them. They need to be gone. But his proposal is let's bring Mahmoud Abbas in the picture and have him control Gaza.
Okay.
What he doesn't realize,
we've done that.
Maybe he does realize it. I don't know. But you cannot ask the Palestinian Authority to take control over another part of what has traditionally been a hostile area towards Israel without at least acknowledging how absolutely hostile the Palestinian Authority is to Israel. Look, I just translated a speech by Mahmoud Abbas from 3 months ago, before the war happened, where he said that the Holocaust did not happen because they were Jews. The Holocaust happened because the Jews were evil people.
Okay, so let's back out a little bit, and I'm going to zoom out. Okay, here's an illustration I've been using for a while, and that is, we all know what football is, and I'm a great lover of football, though I haven't spent enough time with it. You can watch a football game on TV. You can watch a football game through the helmet camera of one of the players. You can watch it from the Goodyear blimp. Okay. And each one of those is going to give you another picture. And in any case, okay, it's really nice to have a slow motion rerun after the event happens. So we're all, how do you say, Tuesday morning football players sitting here and saying, wait a minute, you should have done this. You should have gone to the left. You should have gone to the right. And when you look at from the cable camera from on top, you get one picture. And it makes sense. I mean, okay, they put the defense here. They should have done this. When you look at it through the helmet camera, you see a completely different picture. And again, it's easy for us. So let's say you're right. Whether we should have put the Hamas in place or not, but in real politics, in real war, okay, we went into Lebanon in I was a little baby tank commander in Lebanon. I was there, but we went in there to take out the Palestinian Liberation Organization that was doing with southern Lebanon and what the Hamas is doing now with Gaza. Okay, we went in there, we kicked them out, and we tried to create a pro or a more reasonable government inside Lebanon. We put a Christian family in power. and made a, dedicated a president. We kicked the Palestinian Liberation Organization out. We sent them all the way over to Tunis. We thought we would have peace and quiet. Bashir Jumayel was assassinated by his own people in Lebanon almost immediately. And in the vacuum that was created after we left southern Lebanon, the Hezbollah came to power.
Yep.
So would you blame us for creating the Hezbollah? Should we have left the Palestinian Liberation Organization there that was shooting rockets across the border?
You had no choice.
So again,
if you had left the Palestinian organization, if you had left the Palestinian Liberation Organization in southern Lebanon, Beirut wouldn't even exist right now. Lebanon wouldn't even be Lebanon, and you probably would not have northern Israel. Northern Israel would be gone.
Exactly. So James, let me step out of the.
So you had to.
Let me step out of the cable camera that looks at the flame. Let's go up into the Goodyear blimp, and I'm going to say this. This is the Middle East, and what Israel is realizing now more than ever before, and hopefully this is going to stay, is that around us, the whole area, are billions of people who want to see us dead.
Yeah.
Whether their government is on our side or not, most of the Muslims in the world want to see the extermination of the state of Israel.
That's right.
And we got a quick reminder, and the reason is not because we are Israeli, it's because we're Jews. When the Hamas perpetrators called their parents in Gaza to bloat and to kind of celebrate themselves about what they did, one of the things that stuck in my mind is he didn't say, ba, 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 I've killed Israelis, I killed Israeli soldiers. What does he say?
Yeah, I killed Jews.
Yahud. I've killed Jews.
That's exactly what he said.
And what I need people to kind of realize that when you look at it from the Goodyear blimp, it's not about where the border goes. It's not about the politics. It's not about even the inside politics inside the Muslim world. And I heard somebody from Harvard Business School saying, well, what did you want the Palestinians to do? Now the Saudis were willing to connect to Israel without the caveat of take care of the Palestinians. They had no choice. So we pushed them. And what I'm trying to say is this. 73% of the Muslims in the Middle East believe that what Hamas did was a positive thing.
Yeah.
73%. Okay? That's not a small percentage. That means, and again, real politics, what the governments will do, arrangements, contracts and peace treaties, okay, all that. But the people on the ground see the state of Israel and the existence of Jewish people inside a Muslim Middle East as an affront to everything that they hold important in their identity. Their identity is I'm a Muslim, I am an Arab, I should be running the world, I should be at the top. The fact that I am not is not a result of anything that I do or am. The fact that I am not is because somebody else is to blame, and the blame goes on the Jews, and blaming the Jews is called anti-Semitism.
So even the Saudi, listen, even the royal family in Saudi Arabia will admit, if they are behind a closed door in a semi-public environment, that they need Israel to destroy Hamas. Because even though Hamas represents a population of Sunni Muslims, their interests are now lined up very, very clearly with the Shiites. I'm talking about Hamas.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So you're right. You're completely right. Saudi Arabia's interests absolutely line up with Israel. And I'll tell you why. There's no way in the world Mohammed bin Salman gets the goal that he has of joining the G7. No way he gets that unless he makes a normalization agreement with Israel. Because there's no way that he creates the land bridge that he wants to create for shipping material from Saudi outside of the normal Red Sea route that they've been taking. And he has no way of being able to build on the economy that he knows he can build unless that happens. He also knows, completely knows, that there's no way in the world that the Palestinian Authority is ever going to concede to a two-state solution. If they will not concede to a two-state solution, even if they flipped the switch and put every Jew in Gaza and put everybody else everywhere else. They would never do it. they are never going to be happy with it. Why? Because their mantra is from the river to the sea.
So
Yehud and Yehud. Kill all the Jews.
So, James, if we're not going to reach a two-state solution, okay? If we can't reach a two-state solution, if it's not about the borders, okay? If it's not about good life for the Palestinians, because look what happened. The Hamas government, if he wanted a good life for the Palestinian people, would not have pulled off this attack, okay?
They wouldn't have done half the things that they did for the last 10
so
years.
It's not about a good life for the people. It's not about prosperity. It's not about peace. Okay? Nobody wanted peace. Nobody wanted prosperity. Nobody wanted good life. And just think about the man who pushed the button on this attack and as a result of that started this war. What is he looking for? What is his, what is he? So let's say he is the leader of the people in Gaza. What is his mantra? What is he trying to reach?
His own pocket.
Is it
we
money?
see this.
Yehia Sinwar is in a hole in underneath.
But that's a different story. That he is a symbolic figure for a much bigger picture. The ones that are the big guns, the ones that are the ones that are to most be concerned about when it comes to leadership in Hamas, they're not even in Israel right now. They're in Qatar. And we all know that.
Or Tehran.
Or Tehran, that's right. Yeah. Several in Tehran. As a matter of fact, they not only have several leaders in Hamas in Tehran, but they also have a contingency of Al Jazeera reporters that are connected directly to their main office in Qatar to be able to send out the propaganda that they need to be able to send out. This is not a strange fact to anybody.
We know this.
Four of the leaders that are living right now in Qatar, Hamas leaders, 4 of them are worth collectively $13 billion. I'm about to have an interview. I don't know when it's going to be, probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks, with the guy who is, they call him the son of Hamas. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sit down with him and have this conversation. And he's going to tell me the same thing that me and you have been talking about again and again and again. Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians.
No. So what do they care about?
They care about several things. Number one, they care about furthering and advancing their own lust for power and desire for this. Look, Abbas, come on. Mahmoud Abbas right now is living in a 25,000 square foot home that has his own security contingency, some of whom are supplied by Israel. Okay? What are we talking about here?
I heard somebody say the other day that one of the Hamas leaders is richer than Taylor Swift.
Undoubtedly. At least 4 of them are.
And a lot uglier.
Yeah, well, yeah, at least 4 of them are. At least 4 of them have a net worth of at least $3 billion.
So what are they looking? What is the achievement? Here's one of the questions that we as Israelis are asking, okay? What would say to the Palestinians? What could you give to the Palestinians for a Christmas present that they would say, okay, this is what we wanted? Because we know that it's not a Palestinian state.
Forgive me for saying this. You in a body bag.
Yeah. And that's what Israel, I think, is understanding now more than ever. We get it. We're starting to understand this. We're starting to know, okay? And again, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s in Israel where there was an actual existential threat to the state of Israel, okay? When the shelling started off in Jerusalem, when I was 5 years old, the 6 Days War, we were living in downtown Jerusalem. And again, King Hussein got tricked into joining the 6 Day War. I don't know if you know, but he was planning on staying out of the 6 Day War. We never attacked the Jordanians in 1967. They attacked us.
Yep.
But they were tricked by the KGB and they were tricked by Syria and Egypt. Okay, but I still remember just a day before the war, my mom saying to my dad, "At least we have American passports. If worse comes to worse, we will not be killed. We will be shipped out." Which meaning the underlying idea in Israel when I was growing up is that we would be killed if we don't defend ourselves.
Yep.
Okay, that existential threat, to a certain extent, has faded over the years. When I was a young lieutenant, I was supposed to defend the city of Jerusalem from an onslaught that comes from Egypt, from Jordan, and from Iraq. Yep. Think about Jordan, Iraq, and Syria getting together and heading up towards Jerusalem. My job was to hold the line on that line. We thought that was a possibility. Today, that's not a possibility. So the existential threat against Israel is not the Arab world attacking from outside, but they've decided that there's another way to defeat Israel.
Oh, yeah.
And we're watching it happen as we speak. By the way, there's two ways. We're watching route number one. Route number two, by the way, is a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv. And let's kind of get back to that. That hasn't been taken off the books yet. That is still a possibility.
Look, matter of fact, you know what? I should actually play it. I should play the video, the clip of one of the comments that Ido Netanyahu made when we were talking together. And it's the same exact situation that you brought up. If you think for a second that Iran is going to behave, okay, when given an opportunity to do exactly what they're going to do, you got something else coming. There's no way in the world that any such thing is going to happen. If they are given the opportunity to take human life, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it quickly. They're not going to hesitate to do it. Why? Because they hate Jews. It's that simple. This is not a difficult issue to be able to frame for people. It just isn't.
But why do they hate Jews?
I mean, it goes back to the spiritual side of things.
There we go.
Right? That's the thing. And I think that this is very interesting. Listen, I'm going to read this to you because this is, or I'm going to play this for you because this is very telling. And we're actually going to release this video soon. Yeah. This is a shorts video. We're going to release this. But let me play this for you because this speaks volumes of everything that's happening. And this is from my interview with Ido. And what he says here is extraordinarily powerful. Okay? Listen to what he says, and I think it's important. It's worthwhile us paying attention to. Watch this.
The ferociousness of the Hamas attack on Israel, what they did should be an eye-opener for Americans and for people in the West. This is what will happen to you, and even worse things will happen to you. Had they been able to overwhelm Israel, they would have slaughtered and killed every man, woman, and child in Israel.
If Iran tells you they want us to die, I think we should believe them. I believe that nations like Saudi Arabia want very badly for Israel to defeat Hamas, because of the fact that they have felt abandoned by the United States of America with respect to the current regime's policies. They are concerned with the ideals of the Islamic Brotherhood, Hamas, and what their charter says about nations that continue to normalize or make peace with Israel. Because they all understand the problem of Iran, they feel like they're on their own now. And what he also says about Iran in another one of the videos is striking, and he makes it very clear. He says, Iran is not going to behave themselves when given the opportunity to deploy a nuclear weapon. Okay, and he's right about that.
Okay, so here's part of the bigger picture. Again, we're going back to the Goodyear blimp.
Yep.
Iran has been orchestrating this for a long time. But think about Iran. Okay, think about this situation with Hamas in Gaza if Iran had a nuclear capability. Think about the difference, not so subtle difference, in the power equation in the Middle East, okay, with a nuclear-capable Iran, okay, behind this.
Yep.
Nuclear capability changes the projection of your power in a way that so far none of our enemies have, and has been a main deterrent for, Israel's survival than anything else. And part of what we're talking about is Iran playing a different kind of game.
Yep.
Now, here's part of the reason that I believe that Iran is not in the war. Because they wanted to wait with this scenario until they were more ready for it.
Oh, yeah. I actually take it a step further, and I talked about this a little bit, I think when me and Gaddy were talking. I actually think that Iran, when it comes to its military prowess, is very cowardly in a way. And when I say that, meaning they are not the type of people that sit and plan and engage in typical warfare. As a matter of fact, they're not even reasonable in the area of guerrilla warfare. What they do and what their MO is they deploy proxies. And what they oftentimes will do is they will give their weaponry to those proxies in order to be able to accomplish their purposes. We've seen it again and again and again and again. And what they do is they look for vacuums. They look for vacuums to be able to develop new proxies. This is why Afghanistan was such a dangerous situation with the United States of America leaving.
So, can you bring up a map of the Arabian Peninsula?
Oh, yeah.
Show me the Bab el-Mandeb and Straits of Hormuz together.
Yep.
And maybe just, officers love maps, and we've been doing that before.
Yeah, let me give me just a second. I have to search it out, and
that ties to what we've been talking about. Okay, and which brings us to the Houthim. Let's talk about Houthim and see how that.
Oh
connects.
yeah, that's another huge. Yeah, that's another big issue. Another big issue. This is probably the better one right here.
Right there, that's good.
Because in that way I can zoom in on it and do whatever you need me to do. Let's go over here. Let's go over to this, and then I'll activate our picture here, and then we can do whatever we want.
Okay.
If you want me to zoom in, we can zoom in.
Let's talk about the Red Sea right now. Okay, and zoom out a little bit. Let's see the Red Sea and the way the Red Sea connects the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay, let me.
There you go. So let's see. Let's start off. You see Israel up there on the top.
Yep.
That's where we are up there on top. And you can see that the waterway that kind of the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea actually connects all of the Indian Ocean and everything on the east, okay, through the Suez Canal that goes right by Cairo that you see on the top of the map, yep. Okay, and that goes to Europe. And I think something like 70% of the world's shipping goes through that body of water.
Yep.
And remember when how do you say, one tanker turned a little bit to the left and blocked up the Suez Canal, and the whole world made a big balagan? Think about if I can somehow block that kind of connection right there that you see right there. Okay, let's go to the other side. Look at the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, and you can see Iran over there on the right. You can see the Persian Gulf, and you can see that the Persian Gulf kind of has a little zigzag right there. Those are the Straits of Hormuz next to Dubai, what you see right there. Okay, and you see Saudi Arabia sits on the connection between the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. One of Hamas's proxies is sitting in Yemen. Those are the Houthim down there in the south. And you see Sana'a down in the south is where, and you can see where that waterwork kind of gets, you see the choke point there, Bab el-Mandeb, right there at the bottom, right there. You see that choke point right there, okay? That's one choke point, and Iran is sitting its proxies there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the other choke point is the Straits of Hormuz, okay, back on the other side.
Yep.
And Iran sits on that, okay? And let's say Saudi Arabia let's zoom out. Let's say Saudi Arabia makes a peace agreement with Israel, which means that those two choke points
are gone,
become meaningless.
Yep.
Totally meaningless.
Yep.
Because if shipping can tie up to Saudi Arabia on one side and come out on the Mediterranean on the other side, or oil from the Gulf doesn't have to go through the Straits of Hormuz, can go straight across Saudi Arabia, Iran becomes a nothing on the geopolitical map that you're looking at right now.
100%.
Do you understand why Iran is fighting this war? And you just look at the geography. And again, I can't help but say, God knew what he was doing when he placed us right here.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And there's a lot more to this, by the way, because the Suez Canal is a major issue for a lot of people. A lot of people don't completely consider it, right? They don't look at it. And yet that land bridge that MBS is talking about, Saudi Arabia is talking about, changes a massive amount. It fixes a lot of things. As a matter of fact, what's really interesting and something a lot of people don't stop to consider is if you look at the Red Sea right here where my mouse is, okay, and you were to just make a visual of the very center of the Red Sea, okay? The very center of the Red Sea is the deepest point of that body of water, and it's the only place, by the way, the only place where any major shipping cargo ships can actually go to. They can't float over here near the edges of any of these towns or any of these cities because the water's too shallow. There are specific areas where there are ports of embarkation and ports where people leave, where they have made ways artificially to allow those ships to leave the port area and go to the center. The center has always traditionally been considered to be relatively neutral, which is why this area outside of Djibouti has been very, very important, leading from the Gulf of Aden into the Red Sea. The choke point that exists here is so much more critical to a lot of people because the traditional security mindset would say, let's hug the area outside of where you see the southern tip of Yemen so that we're not subject to the Houthi pirates, basically, doing what they're doing. And that's becoming a problem because they're not doing it. The problem is they can't hug this shore because if they hug this shore, their boat isn't going to go anywhere and there's nothing they can do man-made to solve it. So the idea that you're talking about when you say you eliminate that because you in essence have a land bridge that allows you to be able to go right to the edge. These are all areas that are not Houthi occupied, right? You go right to the edge of Saudi Arabia, you go north, you come along what the area, this body of water is right here, up and past and into Lebanon potentially. You create such an open door. And by the way, just so that everybody knows, Saudi Arabia has already made agreements with Jordan and Lebanon to take their cargo and push it up this way, up and around, with the permission of Russia, by the way, so that when they come off the coast of Lebanon into where Cyprus is, they can ship straight across the Mediterranean to go anywhere they want.
Okay,
if
but
Israel
here's
becomes a party to that...
Here's the problem. Syria has disintegrated.
Yes.
Lebanon is a non-entity.
Yep.
If you are a, how do you say, an Indian manufacturer of trinkets for Christmas.
Yep. I'm glad you're bringing this up because I have an answer for you on what you're about to ask. Because I know
if you are trinkets for Christmas and you're making, and again, I've been watching this happen. You're making billions of dollars of little plastic stars that you put on the top of a Christmas tree, and they're being manufactured or in India or somewhere on in the Far East. They have to get to a market in the United States. If they're being if you're got a multi-billion-dollar business, you don't want that business to go through Syria or Lebanon.
But let me explain why that's going to be an asset. The whole idea of you not wanting your stuff to go through Syria and Lebanon rests in what Saudi Arabia is doing right now.
Exactly.
Because what Saudi Arabia is doing is they're basically saying, we are not only going to incentivize you to allow your goods and services to go through the path that, yes, will touch Syria and Lebanon, but we are going to insure you. And not only will we insure you, but we will reward you for using this land bridge. What ends up happening is, let me just tell you why this becomes very useful. Syria, as inconsequential as it is, will absolutely want to take advantage of goods and services going through their area, especially as you go through the corridor that leads further north into a couple of the airports that are right now constantly being targeted by Israel, okay? But here's where it becomes really significant. Let's say we bypass Syria altogether. Let's just say Syria is inconsequential with respect to the land bridge that Saudi Arabia brings into play. And Saudi Arabia says, we're not going to give you anything, but which, by the way, they already have mutual agreements set up between themselves and right here. Let me zoom in on so that you can see this. They already have a mutual agreement set up between themselves and Iraq. Okay? Just so that everybody knows, there's an Iraqi land bridge that's already put there. So if they needed to, what they could in essence do is they could bypass Syria altogether, go through north, up and around Iraq, and if they wanted to, they could come up to this northern, let me just show you this really quickly, because we saw this interview, which makes it really amazing. Go around up into the north, pay a few extra dollars, right? And incentivize the path that they take. But this is what they want to do. Let me tell you why this is going to be very attractive, especially for Syria and Aleppo and all of these areas. If Saudi Arabia makes a guarantee to run all of their goods in through these small bodies of water and everywhere they're going across the land, and they get into Lebanon. This is why Beirut has such a motive. Beirut is excited about this opportunity because Beirut gains a financial incentive that they've never had before in the midst of one of the worst economies they've ever seen in its history.
Okay, but now say this. Israel and Saudi Arabia have a normalization.
Game over.
Zoom out a minute.
Game over.
Okay, and put Israel, Saudi Arabia, go down a little bit.
Game over.
Go, zoom in. Give me Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel.
Okay, that's easy.
Just look what happens.
It's game over.
Nobody cares about the Suez Canal.
It's game over.
Nobody cares about Iraq. Nobody cares about Syria. Nobody cares about Lebanon. Okay? And all of a sudden, you've got a land bridge that connects both the oil. By the way, the oil from the Persian Gulf goes straight across Saudi Arabia. Doesn't have to go through the pipeways. Okay? The goods and the produce from Asia goes straight across. Doesn't have to go through. And all of a sudden, Iran loses its importance. The Straits of Hormuz are not an asset anymore. Okay, and everything kind of changes. The whole world kind of changes. And again, you want to go into end time prophecy? We can talk about that with being some kind of scenario that kind of smacks with the Bible. But again, why do you think Hamas pushed the button right now? And why do you think Hamas pushed it? Okay, and why do you think Iran is upset with Hamas? Because they pushed the button a little bit too early.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this really quickly because this goes to the question that you just asked. There's a bigger issue here that's really important to understand.
Okay.
If Saudi Arabia and Israel normalize, let me tell you another aspect that becomes the game over, right? Some of the most important stuff that gets imported is coming out of India, Pakistan, okay? All of India, Pakistan has to go south of Afghanistan,
Okay.
through Iran, and then into the Persian Gulf, south over the chokehold and around and over. This is what they do. This is their path, okay? If Saudi Arabia normalizes with Israel, okay? Oman, we already know. Oman is already cooperating and working with Israel. This is not even a question, right? The UAE is cooperating.
And with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. So let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you what happens here, okay? This is where it becomes really crazy, okay? If I'm in Pakistan right here, okay, and I want to deliver goods and services, and I'm in India over here, and I don't want to deliver goods and services, and I want to be able to save time, money, energy, effort, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go across the Gulf, right? And this is people, a lot of people don't see this, right? The Arabian Sea has the potential to be a very good path for cargo, potentially. So I'm going to come across the Arabian Sea. I'm going to enter into several very viable ports in Oman. Yep. I'm going to cut across Oman into Saudi Arabia, go
Up
into Jordan,
Israel.
right? Or straight into Israel off the Sinai region. Now,
Yep.
let me say why this becomes even more important. Let's just say for a second, everybody north of Saudi Arabia sees the potential benefit in something like this. I promise you what's going to happen is Iraq is going to become part of the party.
Okay.
Not only is Iraq going to be part of the party, you have to remember this. Iraq is still very concerned about Kuwait to the south. It's always been an issue. But Iraq is building new cities. They are wanting to become the peace brokers of the Mideast. There's a lot of changes going on. Watch what happens. This is end times Bible prophecy. Watch
All right.
this, okay? Iraq says, I'm going to start working with Saudi Arabia. Jordan says, I'm going to start working with Saudi Arabia. Syria even says, I'm going to work with Saudi Arabia because it's in my interest because of my affiliation with Russia, okay? Egypt, of course, is already working with Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Who loses its position?
Watch this. Watch. It's a good question, right? Guess who gets left out of it all? Iran.
Yep.
And when Iran is left out of it, Ezekiel 38 says there's a hook, right? It won't be long until Russia gets excluded from all of this. Because what happens is they might have a strong position in northern Libya because of the war that they're about to win, right? Which means they have positions on the Mediterranean, and they also have positions in the Red Sea.
And in Syria.
And in Syria, right? But the Red Sea becomes inconsequential because the Suez Canal isn't important anymore, right? And if all of this is beginning to happen, Russia's going to start cooperating with Israel a lot faster and a lot sooner. And they're going to work together. And what's going to end up happening is when all of the prosperity begins to take place, because Saudi Arabia isn't really, in essence, they're the leader of OPEC, right?
Yep.
They don't need Iran anymore and Iran's resources in order to associate. I guarantee you one of the newest members of OPEC is going to end up being an Israeli contingency. And when that happens, because of its natural resources, everybody's going to lose their mind. And what we see happening in Ezekiel 38 is going to formulate, and it's going to be what, a lot of people have said it would based on reading the Bible. Either way, what a lot of people don't realize is that this is a game changer. And do not think for a second that Hamas is not thinking about this.
So let's get off the Goodyear blimp.
Okay,
let's go down onto the playing field.
Yep.
Let's get back on the line of scrimmage. Let's look out through the helmet. And I'm saying this. Hamas realizes that it cannot achieve its goal of destruction of Israel on its own.
That's right.
They don't have the power. They don't have the military power. They don't have the capability. The Arab world and the Palestinians for a long time thought that it was going to be the Arab world together that is going to create the dynamic that's going to destroy Israel. And for many years, the Palestinians believed that terrorism, by rising, is going to raise up the Arab world. And what was Hamas thinking? Hamas, when Sinwar pushed this button on the 7th of October, he thought, I'm going to be the first button.
Yeah.
But then the Hamas is going to get in there.
Yep.
The Palestinian Authority will have no choice, and the West Bank's going to explode. The Hezbollah is going to get in there, and this is going to be the great, because he believes that he is going to be the next Salahuddin.
Yes, that's right. They were banking on it.
That's what he was thinking. And now he's gotten smacked in the face.
Yep.
And he's sitting in a bunker somewhere and just, counting the days until Israel gets to him. Okay? Now, the thing is this. If he can't bank on the Arab world to come save him,
yep,
the only thing he has is to bank on, and I'm sorry to say, the Western world.
I agree. And I think the Western world was already a part of their thinking.
Yep. And what he's trying to do right now is raise up as much support as he can, because the only thing that's going to stop the Israelis now from finding his bunker is is Muslim supporters, people from Muslim backgrounds, and Muslim supporters in the Western world.
100%.
That's the only thing that's going to stop Israel right now.
100%.
Nothing else will top. And he's banking on this happening in the Western world. Now, it's happening, and we're watching it happen. But I don't think it's happening as much or as far as it could have. And I think we're in a very critical week right now.
Yeah.
Seeing what's going to happen until the fall of Khan Yunis.
Why is it that this week would you say is critical? Because I don't think people understand the brevity of that statement. And I'll tell you why, because there's a lot of connections that people don't make about why that statement is so true. Why would you say that this is just a completely critical moment for us?
Khan Yunis is going to fall. Northern Gaza is going to fall. Khan Yunis is going to fall somewhere in the next week, 2 weeks, something like that. Which means all of the main centers of power are going to be in Gaza, are going to be in Israeli hands. That's going to happen in the next week, the only thing that will stop that from happening is if the United States says stop. And the United States has not said stop yet. But a lot of people, both in your administration and on the street, are trying to press the United States administration into stopping Israel. And I think even the Democratic Party right now is putting immense amounts of pressure on the administration, okay, because they're saying if you do not stop and if you are seen as a supporter of Israel, what's going to happen in November? And I think that is why this is a critical week. Either they will be able to create the dynamic that will make the American administration stop Israel, or they will not. If they do not, Israel's going to finish off Hamas. But we need a whole another show, James, to talk about what's going to happen the day after.
Yeah. Well, the day after is another massive conversation that a lot of people don't really want to even have, because the day after is the bigger issue. The war is not the big issue here. The war is Israel's going to do what it's going to do, and when push comes to shove, who cares what anybody else thinks, right? The bigger issue is, how are we going to manage it? And
wait a minute. Do you think the world understands that? Does
No.
the world understand?
They don't.
Does the world understand that what Israel is feeling right now?
No, but
is an existential threat.
No, they don't. But the way I look at it is, I look at it as a father who disciplines his children, right? I do things to my children that they don't understand. I make rules that they have to follow that they don't understand. I tell my children, you're not allowed to unbuckle your seatbelt until I give you permission to unbuckle your seatbelt. You're not allowed to get out of the car until I tell you to get out of the car. You're not allowed to be in the driveway when I'm pulling my car out of... They don't understand that stuff. They just know it's a rule. And sometimes it bothers them. And my thing with that is, you are a 2-year-old. You're a 5-year-old. I'm not reasoning with you. This is a dictatorship. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And when they get older, they'll understand it, right? And they'll recognize it. And the issue here with Israel is not going to explain themselves to the international community when it relates to their safety. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Well, you're doing it, but the bottom line is...
We're trying to explain.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, Israel is not going to stop. Look, one of my favorite parts of my interview with Dr. Netanyahu centers around the discussion of judicial reform. You remember what he said?
Yeah.
He said they were protesting in the streets. Everybody, the West thought that Israel was over, that it was going to break up as a nation, that it was going to fall apart because of the rioters, the protesters, the this, the that, the here, the there. October 7th happens. And not only did every single member of the IDF that said they wouldn't serve, not only did they jump into action,
No, everybody else.
but people came from all over the world to jump into the fight.
Again, this is a terrific mistake. And again, I'm gonna kind of personalize it. Okay, you got a family, mom, dad, kids. Okay, and it could be that the family is not getting along, and mom and dad have been fighting. Okay, and then somebody breaks into the house. And takes one of the kids. The fight between mom and dad ends at that moment, and that father is on the warpath.
100%.
And it doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter who agrees with him. It doesn't matter. And again, here's something. If you steal my children, do you think anything in the world is going to stop me from going in there and doing everything possible? 1, to get them back. 2, to make sure this never happens again. And again, make it personal. I mean, mom and dad could be fighting in the living room the day this happened. But the minute this happens, everything is over, and this is a family again. And I think that's what the world needs to understand. But then somebody comes and says, okay, let's talk about it. Maybe we should give you one of your kids back and not the other kid.
Right.
Let's negotiate this because we're upset with you about something. Do you think that we can negotiate about one kid or another kid?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
It's absurd.
Let me ask you something else. What does that mean when somebody makes you make that decision?
Oh, yeah.
What does that say about the moral depravity of somebody who makes you decide which child you want back first?
100%. 100%.
This is where we are.
100%.
It's been 60 days.
You could not be more accurate in your assessment of this. And if these people think that Israel is just going to sit there and say, I'll do whatever you say,
No.
they're out of you're out of your mind. You absolutely have no idea what you're talking about. These people are nuts if they think that's going to be the case.
Okay, but they're going to fight. We're going to get blamed. Okay, on my way to save my children, I might have to break through walls. I might have to go through living rooms. I might have to do things. Okay, and we're going to be blamed for that. And again, I love the way I hear the other side talking about it. They don't mention the 7th of October. They only start with what happened yesterday.
Undoubtedly.
And again, that's a selective truth. And again, and we've prepared the how do you say, the garden for this kind of tree to grow there.
100%.
Okay, and that's something that you've been talking about for a long time. I think that not enough people realize what's going on. This is a fight for Christian Western values as much as it is a fight for Israel.
Oh,
Israel's going to win its war.
Yep.
But I think we're losing the fight for Christian values in our world.
Yep. And I deal with this all the time. This is something that I hear about, and people say the most absurd, ridiculous, crazy things when I say and I do the things that I say. I remember from the very, very beginning, people used to tell me, James, I hear everything from you talk too much to, you look or sound rude to everything. Every time I bring these things up, and here's my thing about it. I don't give a rip what you think. Look, here's the way I look at it. If you don't like what I'm saying, you don't have to watch. But here's the consequence of you not listening to truth speaking. You not listening to truth speaking is you preparing yourself to walk into a place of complete destruction. But the one thing you can't do is blame me or you or anybody else for not warning you about the things that are coming and the things that are going on.
Okay, but let's go back to where we started off. If we're in a teenage society, okay, and the teenager thinks that he has the right that he has, and I'm seeing a demonstration in Canada, and Canadian, Muslims are saying, we demand Israel ceases fire. Yeah. And I'm saying to myself, who are you? Why do you think? How do you think? And I mean, what does this work? Okay, so they believe that what's important to them is important to the world.
That's right.
Okay, so how do we deal with the fact that the narrative is being decided by Chinese algorithm on TikTok?
Yep.
Okay, and these young people believe that what they think is right. They believe that what they want is what's important, and they think that they can make the world do that. Now, maybe the United States, I don't know, but here's the thing: Israel's not going to stop.
No, and here's why. Look, I just say this. I'll be straight up, okay? Stick them in the middle of Gaza City. Go stand in Gaza City for 5 minutes and say the nonsense that you're saying. And here's the other thing that I'm going to say. And I'm going to be very, very just bold about it, right? You can sit here in your high chair. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it a high chair. You can sit in your high chair and you can babble till you're blue in the face about how your opinion matters. And by the way, opinions matter. And I do think that every single person should have an opinion, and I think that their opinion does matter. But when you make an assertion that what we're saying is misguided or based in unawareness, okay? First of all, you cannot, not even understanding a word of Arabic, sit here and accuse me as some high-minded social media influencer that I don't understand or even know. But look, how about we just talk about some of these famous people that are saying they've converted to Islam and don't even understand what Islam is about. You don't know. You don't understand the words that you're saying. Or how about somebody making an accusation to you? Because we've seen some of the comments. Oh, he's just single-minded or whatever. Okay, how about this? Forgive me for sounding awful. How about I stick your rear end in a tank and have you make decision whether or not to fire
into a window
that involves another family while your own family is at risk. Yep. And every decision you make as a major and as a commander is going to affect all of the women and children that you have to go to later on and say, my decision got them killed. Once you've done that, and you've done that for most of your life, then come over here and run your mouth. But people don't know.
Again, but we're a football nation, okay?
That's
and
right.
there are people who enjoy the football and have very, very clear opinions about what should be done on the line of scrimmage, even though they've never sat on the line of scrimmage ever in their life.
100%.
Okay, and they may say, okay, you play one play, you play two plays. How about playing a whole game? Do you feel the difference between, the first quarter and the fourth quarter? I mean, all of these things impact on a very direct basis what's going on the ground. And again, everybody's allowed to have an opinion. But if you don't have skin in the game,
yeah,
or I'm going to say this, I'm going to go dramatic. If your son or daughter is not going to live or die based on these opinions, then what does your opinion mean?
Yeah, or let's just say you don't have any experience with any of this stuff. Let's say you're not in the middle of the understanding of what's going on in Islamic culture. You're not a fundamentalist. You've never been to the Middle East. You don't understand it. Let's even pretend you have no familiarity with Israel. You know who's a good example on how to deal with stuff like this? Pat Bet-David. I watched Pat Bet-David in several interviews. He's very, very good. Now, mind you, he is an Assyrian. Not to be conflated with Syrian. He's an Assyrian. Yeah. He's an Iranian-born Assyrian.
Okay.
So he has a background and understands and speaks his language, and he speaks he's involved in the culture. But you know what I like about a guy like that? That guy will not run his mouth without being able to sit down and say, give me some perspective. And unlike me, because I tend to be a lot more emotional than him, right? When he does get emotional, okay, I can just tell you this right now. It's founded in an investment that he makes in a particular issue that is rooted in fact.
Okay.
Why don't other people do that? I'll tell you why they don't do that. They don't do it because there's no commitment to the truth.
Again, define truth. And this is something that I've been talking a lot about.
You want me to define truth?
Well, yeah.
Let me define it. It's really simple. It's this book.
I get you.
It's that simple.
But we have eroded.
It's not subjective.
Okay, here's the thing. But here's the thing. We're living in a culture that has eroded, devolved, dissolved, faded the concept of truth. So truth becomes relevant. Truth becomes subjective. Truth becomes personal. Truth becomes emotional. All of those things. And you and I both know that if God is truth, and by the way, Jesus said that I am the way, the truth, and the life. So by definition, Jesus is truth. Everything that is non-truth is non-godly.
Yep.
And here you have an equation. And again, we've gone above the Goodyear blimp into the stratosphere.
I just think they're important conversations to be having, because right now, and it's like you said it, when all of this had first broken out, that was such a critical and important. It was a critical and important thing that you said. You said, look, right now you're with us. The whole world is with us right now. For the first few days, everybody was support Israel, bring them back, bring them back, bring them back. You said it. You said within a week, and by the way, you were wrong. You said within a week they're going to turn on us. You were wrong, because within 3 days, it wasn't even 3 days, it was
48 hours.
48 hours, they turned on us. They were protesting, supporting Hamas.
Yep.
So think about that for a second.
No, we knew that was going to happen.
We all knew that was going to happen, but I think both me and you and a lot of other people were shocked about how quick and how fast and furious it was.
Not only how quick, how the hypocritical aspect kind of stepped in so fast, and how women organizations have nothing to say about what happened on the 7th of October, how children organizations...
Queers for Palestine?
No, people who are sensitive to their pronouns are not sensitive to what happened, and sometimes even the silence is very, very shocking. But again, we're not surprised. This is on the way. But I need the people who are watching this and listening to know that the truth is being attacked right now.
Yep.
The truth is under attack. And if you want to fight for anything, fight for the truth, even in your own society.
100%. Look, I agree with you. By the way, Bobby Grow, I just have to say something. I'm glad you're in the chat, man. I haven't seen you in a chat in a long time. God bless you, bro. That's an intelligent guy right there. Someone I really respect. Anyway, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm like, right now, we understand our obligation to keep telling the truth and to keep speaking about these things. But look, David, it's just going to get worse.
So what's going to happen now is Khan Yunis is surrounded.
Yes, let's finish this up, because we are running out of time. But finish this up. I'd like to. We need to talk about this a little bit.
Khan Yunis is surrounded, and slowly they're going to kind of tie the noose. And again, I hope Sinwar is in Khan Yunis. Everybody says he is. Israel is saying we think probably. Most of this. So if it tightens up in Khan Yunis right now, okay, and we do manage to get to Sinwar, the question is, will it be over? And
that's the big question.
That's the big
What's your
question.
thought on this? Do you think it will be if they catch him? Because undoubtedly they catch him, they're going to execute him. I mean, obviously he's going to go through a tribunal. There's going to be all kinds of things that are going to end up going on. But
well, I don't know.
You don't think so? I think they have to.
Tribunal?
Not a tribunal, but I think that he has. I think that he has to be done with.
Well, he will be done with. Okay, that's. I don't believe a person like this. And again, I'm not a judicial.
They'll probably fire on him right there on the spot. My guess is it'll be a firefight because he's going to resist. There's no way he's going to say, "Oh, I give up."
No, he wants a martyr's death. I mean, I mean, if him being another Saddam Hussein is the worst thing that could happen to the Arab world. So probably something like that, and hopefully that'll finish that way. My question is this: will the people of Gaza give up the minute Sinwar is dead? And I'm not sure about that.
See, now that's a really good question, dude, because I'm with you on that. I have a lot of confidence in the assertions that I make with Mideast geopolitics, and I say that a lot, but that one I have no confidence in. I don't know.
Okay, so
what ends Hamas?
You've come from that environment, okay? And think about this: a young 25-year-old Arab Muslim living in Gaza, who has invested his whole identity into this struggle, this fight against the occupation, this fight against resistance. I mean, he's been in school plays when he was 4 years old. He was in the Hamas youth movement when he was 15 years old. He joined the Hamas when he was 18 years old, and he's been fighting, and he survived this. Okay, what is he going to do?
That's a good question.
What's going to happen with him?
It's a good question.
What is somebody who is 50 years old who's lived a life, and all his life has been dedicated to, I am on the bottom of the totem pole. I'm living in the gutter because the resistance is really, really important. I've given up my life for this.
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to say, okay, enough, I was wrong?
No.
What is he going to say? And again, what are the people of Gaza? Again, not the leadership. What are the people of Gaza who've raised their kids believing this hatred? Or what are the children of Gaza who have seen this happen? What's going to happen with them?
What I think has to happen, and this is going to sound really crazy, but I think that Israel needs to come in. It needs to come in with force. Israel needs to maintain that force. Israel needs to, at all costs, maintain order in those areas. And I think with enough time, with that happening, the many residents of that area will see the value in the order that's being put and will eventually fall in path with it. Now, there's other people you're never going to be able to deprogram, right? When you have a guy who their whole family says that I just watched the interview. Yeah. I just watched an interview that if I translated it for you, as a matter of fact, you know what? I can play it on my phone, but I have to translate it for you. But I'll do it. I'll actually do it. Let me find this here. Okay, this is horrendous. Okay, what you see here is what you're about to hear is absolutely horrendous. This is a conversation with a woman from Gaza. She's being interviewed. Okay,
in Gaza.
This is national Palestinian TV.
Okay.
The topic of the conversation is how to educate your children.
How is this from now or from before?
No, this is recent.
Yeah, okay.
This is okay. Very recent. Okay.
All right. That's interesting.
Let me translate this for you. This is crazy. Okay? And you'll understand some of it, obviously, David. Some of this is stuff you're going to understand. But let me translate this for you. I have to play it here because I don't have the video on the computer. But let me play this for you. So, how do you do something big for the boys and the girls? Like how do we do something
in the city of Gaza?
Like a big education for the boys and the girls, our boys and girls? And she said, Jamila, meaning I have a beautiful answer, okay? Okay. We give, this is a real translation. We give birth to all of these children, the purpose for giving birth to these children is so that we can push them to die. So that we can push them to die. That's what she's saying in Arabic. Okay? He's getting let me that's right. Let me tell you I missed that again. Let me tell you what my great grandfather used to tell me. I think he said great grandfather. I think grandfather is what it is. I missed it. But this is what he says his grandfather used to tell him. This is the guy that's interviewing her. Before he agreed to allow anybody to be married in the family, like before he agreed anybody to go get married to this person or that person, right? He would say, are there going to be any grandchildren, or are there going to be any children? That's the question that would ask, right? This is crazy. He says that most people would expect to hear a response like, yeah, inshallah, like he would answer and say, yeah, Lord willing, I'll have more grandchildren. He wouldn't say that. He would say, no. He said, they have nuclear bombs, referring to Israel. Mm-hmm. And he says, we have offspring, children bombs, is what he's saying. We have bombs of children. That's what he's saying. And she's saying, Allah, like agree, like, yeah, Allah, like we agree. These are our children. There are bombs. There are weapons. Listen to this. Giving birth is very important in Palestine, in Haifa, in Jaffa, wherever the Palestinians are. They have to understand the importance of these kids. They use the kids for. They use the kids bi'isma Allah, right? For shahada, for sacrifice. That's when I give birth to many children, I can raise them to love their homeland by resisting. So the honor of their blood contributes to the sacrifice. That's what she says. Okay. Can you imagine how crazy that is?
Okay, James. And Jewish Israeli, to somebody who understands the Arab mindset, okay? How much is this an issue of pride?
What this is a genuine and sincere belief in what the Quran teaches them.
Meaning somebody who is willing to die, but not to say I was wrong. Willing to die, but not to say my government made a mistake. How much is this an issue of, even though I'm losing, even though I am not willing to say this was a mistake?
They don't say that, and they won't say that because they don't place a contingency upon a result. They don't look at results to determine their contingencies. They believe the words of the Quran, and the Quran tells them death to the Jews and honors the martyr. That's exactly what's going on.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this. Listen, the situation that we're seeing in Gaza is not unheard of in human history. Go back to the end of World War II. Nazi Germany has lost. Okay, they at some point they're still fighting, but they've lost. I mean, and the German people have to see the landing at D-Day. You know, the Battle of the Bulge has been lost. You know, the forces moving in from the eastern side and forces moving in from the western side. Now, these are people who bought into the Nazi idea.
Yep.
These are people who were Hitler Youth. These are people who stood in tens of thousands, did the Heil Hitler, and they see that they're losing, and at the end, done. Okay? When they're done, they have to realize that something has changed. And I'm going to say something. After the loss, Imperial Japan, same classic idea, a very, very pride-centered idea. I mean, the Japanese are people of pride. I mean, it was more than anything. They were willing to send young pilots in flying bombs, kamikazes. We call them kamikazes. But in the end, they lost. But they had to accept that loss.
Yep.
So if we're talking about the day after, the Palestinian people, and in retrospect, the rest of the Arabs have to accept that they have lost. Otherwise, we cannot start rebuilding.
Yeah, but the problem is they're not.
Will they accept that?
No, they won't.
And here's our problem.
They won't. And the reason, again, the reason why they will not do that, and this is what sounds crazy, right? The reason why that they will not do that, and I have to make myself very, very clear here, is because they're not being driven ideologically. Okay, I think that's the thing that has to be understood. They're not being driven. Well, let me say this: they are being driven ideologically, but the idealism that they are being driven by is the words of the Quran that they continue to believe and read. Right, the idealism that that we think we are making the mistake in the West to think that they're being driven by is the desire for a better life. They could care less about the better life. That is not the issue.
Do you think that the Western world understands that? Because if they were driven by a better life, they would not have pressed the button on the 7th of October.
They don't understand it. As a matter of fact, that was the great shocker with 9/11. The reason why 9/11 was so surprising to so many Americans, and it wasn't surprising. Yeah, it wasn't surprising to me and my family, but to so many Americans, it was shocking. And the reason why that it was shocking, the reason why it was just mind-boggling to so many people, was because most people expected when 9/11 took place that these people would behave in a way that involved the for lack of a better term, the preservation of their life. Terrorism in the past worked that way. Mm-hmm. You know, when we talk about something like what Yoni did, right? And that's fresh in my mind because I just recently reread his brother's memoirs on the whole thing and everything that happened. All of that was being driven by the understanding that these terrorists, when push came to shove, didn't really want to die, right? They just had there was a purpose that was more involved. When we talk about the type of jihad and the suicide martyrdom that we know of today, it's become a lot more extreme in that a lot more people have gone back to the fundamentals and the ideals. So now what's happened is you can't look. Prior to 9/11, the prominent thought was, if I have a terrorist that's standing in an airplane and I want to stop that terrorist, I can hold him with a threat that I'm going to kill him. So the idea here is, you want to take the plane down. If I hold you at gunpoint, you're going to listen to me. Otherwise, I'm going to get shot, right? Well, terrorists don't work that way. These terrorists, especially Islamic terrorists, their thing is, I was planning on dying anyway. So look, I got a bomb strapped to me, or no matter what. I've got nothing to lose. Yeah. I mean, when they were crashing those planes into the buildings, they weren't going, I'm scared. No, they were saying, Ya ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's what they were saying. So the whole idea and goal of martyrdom was something that was substantial.
Again, I can't help but go, wait a minute. Our grandfathers had to answer this question at the end of World War II. And they looked at Nazi Germany, and they looked at Dresden and Berlin in ruins like you see. By the way, the pictures are very similar, like you see in Gaza today, okay? And somehow those Nazis that put together the death camps and fought to the end, after World War II, turned into the Germany that we look and respect today.
That's right.
Okay, something happened. I mean, it's not unprecedented. This is something that has happened in the past.
But
what's the difference?
I'll tell you what the difference is. When Hitler did what he did, he was not driven by an idealism that says, I'm going to take my life and I'm going to get a benefit from taking my life in the name of Allah. You know, Hitler was, in essence, for all intents and purposes, a mystical secular humanist. There was actually, really truthfully, he was a neo-Malthusian. That's who he was. Okay. So if you really think about it, he was driven by a completely different ideal, right? These guys are not driven that way. These guys are driven by, I'm going to do whatever I can, which is why it's so critical that Israel open up their eyes to recognize that they're never going to get out of the situation that they think they're going to get out of.
Is there any asset to a Marshall Plan? Is that even something that'll work on the Palestinians like it worked on the Japanese?
Yes and no.
Do we need to explain the Marshall Plan to the people who don't know what it is?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and explain it. But there is a caveat that I want to throw out with this, right? If you were to deploy any type of a Marshall Plan, I'll let you expand upon it. If you are going to deploy any type of Marshall Plan in this situation that paralleled what we saw with Japan, for example, right?
Okay.
You would have to figure out a way to successfully deprogram the people that end up becoming the recipients of that, which are these Muslims that have this idealism. And that's very difficult to do under the function of duress.
But Japan did it. I mean, again, we know the stories about the Japanese who stayed holed up in a cave somewhere in an island on the Pacific for 30 years and never gave up, or the Japanese on Iwo Jima that I think something like 80% or 85% of them actually died or killed themselves. Okay, we got that. But Japan today is something completely different. It's gone through a transformation. The Marshall Plan was at the end of World War II, the United States of America, by the way, out of its Christian ideology, okay, out of its Christian love, basically, decided to reinstate and rebuild Nazi Germany and rebuild Imperial Japan based on the idea that if your enemy has been vanquished, you can be, loving and peaceful and help them rebuild, and that'll create a better society afterward.
But again, they're even with what we did with Japanese citizens here in the United States, took their homes away unjustly, put them in camps. Look, even with that, there was still a willingness on the end of those that were recipients of the Marshall Plan to change the way they think and not become or do what got them to that place in the first place.
Will a Marshall Plan work with the Palestinians?
I personally think no.
And if it doesn't, what does that mean?
If it doesn't, what it means is this: Israel takes possession, occupies, whatever you want to call it, and runs it the way that they see fit. And eventually, you will find a larger majority of citizens that will comply with it. Because an overwhelmingly larger number than we think of Palestinians just do want to live a better life, but are willing to continue to go along with the terminology associated with fundamental Islam because they know that if they don't, their life is over.
So the only way is under a threat of duress, under a threat of
Israel
death.
Israel forcing it to happen. It's not even under the threat or the picture of duress for threat. It's that Israel's going to have to set up its own rules.
So a better life for the Palestinians isn't going to be a solution for this?
Well, it will be, but the only way that you're going to be able to achieve it is by Israeli control.
By force.
It's the only way. Because they will continue to do what they're going to do. You can't fix it.
I think to a certain extent, we've reached a point where I think most of the Israelis are today.
Yeah. And listen, and I'm going to just tell you this right now, and I do agree with Ido when he said this. The judicial reform issue in Israel is over. It's over. No one from October 7th on, nobody gives a rip about it.
In my term, it's the argument between mom and dad who takes out the trash is not an issue right now.
Yep, completely. And the greatest mistake that the West made, and many people who were neighbors of Israel, was that Israel was so weak-minded that they would allow themselves to fall apart over a disagreement. Similarly to what's happened with the United States.
Okay, now let me go back to history. Again, this is me, my people, and my history kind of coming in. We've been here before. I don't know if you remember when the Romans came to destroy Jerusalem in 71 AD, we were arguing between ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the argument between ourselves cost us very, very dearly, okay? It's not like we haven't done this in the past. But I will go back to the kind of the beginning and the end of this story. This is weird. It's both the beginning and the end. I know we'll be here at the end. I know Israel will be here at the end. So if you kind of accept that as a set value, then all the rest of the discussion here is about what happens in the middle, what happens on the way. And I think this is something that I think people, especially our viewers, have to understand, that in the end, Israel's been through this and has been through this in the past, is going through this now, and probably will go through this in the future.
And they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. I think that the only way you solve this problem is to do what happened in for example, in Beit Laham. I mean, do you understand? You understand it. You understand it more than anybody. Look at how well Beit Laham was doing in 94. I remember walking through the streets of Beit Laham and thinking, man, you can smell the fresh bread. I remembered people right outside of the famous church where they believed Christ was born.
The Nativity.
Yeah, right outside the Church of the Nativity, there were Palestinian families singing in Arabic.
Christmas
on the corner, singing Christmas songs. I remember this. I watched it. You could go. You remember the brothers that had their beautiful store in Beit Laham? They spoke yeah. And a matter of fact, I believe they were Assyrian. They spoke perfect Arabic and they spoke perfect Aramaic. Beautiful brothers. Was it the Nissan brothers? The Nissan family. I remember being there and the brothers telling me how much they love living in the city and doing business in the city. I remember going back a year later and saying, there's no hope.
Because, how do you say, the deceiver planted in their hearts, their minds, their souls, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, okay, that fighting against the Jewish people is something positive instead of cooperating with the Jewish people. And we know what happens.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this, David, because you weren't with me when this was happening. I remember in 1994 being in central Israel and seeing in the area of Judea, Samaria, right? And seeing the beginning of what looked like a massive structure being built. Okay? I asked David, I said, David, what is this? So he says, it's a PLO building that they're building. It's their new government building or whatever. And I looked at him and I said, how soon do you think that's going to get done? He says, not going to get done. It's not going to get. I remember going back in 3 years and it looking worse than it did when we first saw it.
Come on. I used to go to Gaza to eat falafel. They had amazing falafel in Gaza. I mean, again, it's not. When the deceiver plants Jew hatred in the hearts of Nazi Germany, or in the hearts of Palestinians, it's going to go the wrong way.
It is so sad. I remember being in Jerusalem, really like this. You know, there's a street that is below the East Gate, like a little highway area that's above the. It's outside of the city
Eastern Gate.
Yeah. Where the Valley of Kidron is, the Kidron Valley. You know, it's
outside the Dung Gate.
Yeah, outside the Dung Gate. Sorry, outside the Dung Gate. And anyway, I remembered the first year that I was there. We got out of the bus for a moment. I forgot why. Ramsey had some work that he had to do with this bus or something. I don't remember. We got out of the bus, and you could smell the fresh air. I mean, it was so nice. Like you'd
it's
go
different
there.
now.
The next year, I remember getting out of the bus and I made our tour guide laugh. I made David laugh, but I offended some people, but it was because they weren't aware. I stepped out of the bus and I looked at David. I said, when did the Palestinians move in? You know, where since when did they come? And he says, oh, that happened about 3 months ago. And then one of the people on the tour said, how do you know the Palestinians moved in here? I said, can you smell that? They said, what? That smell right there. What is it? It's the smell of trash burning.
Yep.
Yeah. That's how you know the Palestinians are there.
It's a culture thing, the burning trash in the neighborhood.
My point is, I wasn't trying to put anybody down, and I wasn't trying to make a racist comment. I wasn't trying to do any of that. It's just a completely different ball of wax.
So if they are not going to come to a understanding of the situation and they're not going to back down, okay, then we're in for a major battle.
Oh.
And what I'm trying to say is this.
I've been saying that from the beginning.
That's why I've said this week, when they do manage to get in there and take down Sinwar, okay, that's going to be the place where this question is going to come up. What's going to happen? And please pray for our leadership, pray for the soldiers that are in the middle of this and everything else that is happening.
I hope sincerely hope that I'm wrong, David. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that this is something that people are going to naturally fall into, and if there is some kind of a Marshall Plan. But see, here's the other thing. Here's the other reason why I say the Marshall Plan isn't going to work, because it's not going to go to the infrastructure. The money, the international money that comes in, isn't going into the infrastructure that they claim it's going to need to go into.
So here's another part of the problem that we haven't even touched, and part of the issue is corruption inside these cultures.
Thank you.
Corruption is a major issue, and it's something that, again, I don't think anybody has a good solution, because the billions of dollars that were poured into Imperial Japan at the end of World War II were regulated and were financed and were how do you say, managed by United States military.
That's my whole point. I keep saying this, David. This is why I say Israel needs to manage it.
So that might be something that we and again, we need to do another show about the day after.
Yeah, and the crazy leftist Jews that live in the United States of America, who are paying everybody and their mama to like them, even though they're not liked, right? Needs to take that money, take it out of these institutions that are brainwashing these children, and take all those endowments and throw them at Israel. And let Israel do what Israel's going to do.
Well, here's something interesting, and again, I'm not sure we have time to kind of open this, is that Qatar has been spending billions of dollars in American institutions lately.
I know where you're going. I know exactly where you're going. And that's the Qatari. Look, the mindset in Qatar has been exactly that. By the way, you know who's helping with all of that stuff? Al Jazeera and the father companies that continue to work with these types of organizations. They are funding the brainwashing of these kids. And the population, by the way, of Arabs that are beginning to go to American institutions for school is growing.
Yeah, but just like, okay, I know I'm going to bring this out of the way out, but just like Pinocchio was convinced to go off and do something terrible, it was because he felt insecure in himself.
Oh, undoubtedly. There's a lot of that going on.
So our young people are going off to college feeling insecure, feeling that they are depressed, feeling that they are oppressed,
looking for purpose,
and the enemy has found a way to kind of press that button very clearly.
David, I agree with you. Look, I'm in wholehearted agreement with you, and this is where the enemy does what he does. He exploits the weakness that continues to develop in our society as a result of family not being family. When fathers leave the household, when mothers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, when they're so busy trying to climb a corporate ladder instead of taking care of their children at home, when fathers are abandoning their responsibility, they're not going out, they're not working with their hands, you leave massive gaps for children. And those children are looking to find whatever fulfillment they can find, and they're finding it right now in these educational institutions.
Letters from Osama bin Laden. Oh my God.
Hey, they're looking at him as a hero. Did you ever think in a million years he would be viewed as a hero?
Well, we're very thankful that he was buried at sea, by the way.
Oh, come on.
Now. Just think about what would have, if he had a place, a marker somewhere on planet Earth.
Could you imagine?
That would have become how do you say, a mecca for a lot of people.
I mean, and even the mindset that was adapted in these kids now that are beginning to embrace him, right? They're taking facts and they are distorting them. And by the way, those facts go all the way back to Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Russia, and the United States. And we all know what happened. When Russia lost in Afghanistan, bin Laden was a big part of that. And guess what? Just like Israel had a relationship with Hamas. Okay? And we had a relationship with bin Laden. We did.
And look what happened. But James, I want to stress something before we kind of disappear on this one, and I want to stress something really important. It's a war against the truth, and in the war against the truth, you need to be a part of this battle. So we need to fight the falsehood by spreading the truth.
Amen.
The way I tend to think, the algorithm that runs TikTok is Chinese, and you can use that algorithm against the falsehood, against the deceiver, just like the deceiver is using it against us. And please spread the truth. I mean, it's not enough just to comment. It's not enough even to like. We need you to share. We need you to spread. We need you to educate as much as possible the younger generation. All of the people watching us have cousins, uncles, somebody who's on the other side of this divide. This is a war that needs to be fought. Pastor James is doing it here. I'm doing it with the Balagan Connection. Connect to that. And we need you to be a part of this war. We need to be a part of this battle. And again, we know that the final result is going to be that we're going to win. But it's going to be a serious and harsh battle until then. Please join us in this battle.
Amen. And one of the things that you can do, we are way over time. Way over time. So we're not going to do a locals broadcast. I did have some people ask how they can support us on locals. Me specifically with my family, if you do support us on locals, it goes straight to me and my family. We're going to set up a locals page for David. I've been convincing him to. We have to do it.
We have to do it.
Yeah, so we're going to do it sooner than later. But when you go on my locals page, you are supporting me and my family, and I'm very, very grateful for the support that you give us. We appreciate it. There's a link there to do it, and we're very grateful. And I'm going to be doing some, especially this month, in the month of December, I'm going to be doing some broadcasts on locals that are only going to be on locals and nobody else. Live broadcasts, by the way. Dale and I will do a few of those, so I'm kind of looking forward to that for you guys. So just want to thank you for that. And then also, before we wrap things up, and I'll leave David to give us some final words before we do, I do want to thank you guys. Speaking of support, I do want to thank you guys who have supported us, whether it be on Rumble or on YouTube. And we got a few, I think we got one on Rumble. Let me see here. Oh yeah, Castillo Dina, thank you so much. You say, Pastor, I'm so thankful for you. And of course, we're always thankful for you. You're awesome. You're a great supporter, and we appreciate that. You're a blessing. And then all you guys that are supporting here on YouTube. Thank you so much. There's so many of you. I'll just read this. You guys are awesome. By the way, Maya Rikfa, we will talk about COP28 soon. We're gonna end up having a conversation about that. And actually 29, but thank you. Salt and Light, thank you. Chuva 2K, thank you. MK Ultra, I think this is your first time. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Chava 2K, thank you. Brandy Showwater, thank you. Broman, thank you. You guys are all awesome. But please help and support. David, how can they support you directly? This is important because there's a few ways that they can do that.
Well, I'm going to mention the Gihon Springs. Gihon Springs is an organization that's working with different ministries in Israel, and Balagan Connection, me personally, is one of those. So there should be a link to the Gihon Springs site. You go on there and you can donate either to other things that the Gihon Spring does or to the Balagan Connection directly.
Yep. And we have those links available. I will say Gihon Springs is ran by my pastor, who is just a wonderful man, and it's a beautiful ministry, and they're doing a lot. So if you want to help, that's a great way, a very, very good way.
And we do need help, believe me.
Yeah, and
Israel needs help, and Balagan Connection needs help.
Yep.
I'm going to ask for something else, and I'm going to use this platform kind of to do that also.
Please.
I need to push out more content. Now, Pastor James has been telling me that for a while, but I'm going to ask you to kind of push me on that one too. So requests, questions, comments that you think we should deal with. Balagan Connection, you've seen some of the content. Get on there, support the Balagan Connection, support the website, and let's see how far we can go with that.
Yes, and then I am going to do one more thing, and I am going to post in the chat the new video that David just released. I am going to challenge you guys right now to jump on that video. By the way, for those of you that are on Rumble that are asking how to support me on locals, you just hit the red join button. That's how you would do it. The Balagan Connection link right now I just put up. It's David's new video. I want to see that view number go skyrocket right now. We thought we'd be done by 1, but we weren't. So want to see you guys jump on there right now. With that, let's pray. Ask the Lord to go before us, and then you guys get on that video. Watch that video, please, okay? Father in heaven, we just thank you, Lord, for this time that we've had together. We just pray that right now, in the name of Jesus, Lord, you would just bless your people, Israel, Lord, that you would protect everybody involved in this situation. We put them in your hands, Lord. We love you. We thank you. We pray that you would just go before us now, Lord, and give us your heart and your mind. We love you, and we ask these things now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we love you. God bless you. Keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep fighting the good fight.
Amen.